At my graduation celebration, my brother lifted his cup and declared, "Wild that you graduated, you'll probably end up unemployed anyway." My dad let out a laugh. I stayed silent. That night, I removed my name from his loan application. At 9:12 a.m., the phone rang. "Your approval's been revoked." 10 minutes later, my brother sent a text in all caps. I hadn't even wanted a graduation party. I told my mom it was unnecessary, a pointless expense. But she was adamant, said it was a family achievement. Never mind that I footed most of the bill because she and my dad were short on cash, as usual. That was their go-to excuse these days. My brother didn't contribute a dime either. The party was held in our backyard. Same tired string lights, half of them flickering out, folding tables borrowed from the neighbor next door. Food came from a Costco trip I paid for. A few cousins showed up, along with two of my mom's coworkers and my dad's colleagues who reeked of cheap beer and kept calling me Harold. It was the sort of gathering where everyone claps when someone raises a glass, even if they're about to say something cruel. Like my brother did. He stood, holding a plastic cup, smirking like he was at a comedy roast. The crowd hushed. He lifted his cup and said, "Wild that you graduated, you'll probably end up unemployed anyway." Laughter. Only from my dad, though, loud and thoughtless like he found it genuinely witty. My mom didn't react. She just kept chatting with her friend as if nothing happened. I stood there for a moment, fighting to keep my face neutral as my ears burned. I said nothing. I left my plate on the table and slipped inside. The next morning, they were all gone. My parents had some meeting downtown. My brother was off discussing business with a friend, which meant loitering in a GameStop parking lot for hours. I had the house to myself, a rare moment of peace. No shouting, no demands, no requests for cash. So I acted. I logged into the loan portal and withdrew my name from the application. The laptop he wanted was pricey, nearly $3,000, and he couldn't qualify without me. I'd agreed to co-sign 3 weeks earlier because he claimed it was for online courses. But I'd never seen him open anything but video games. I was the fool who thought I owed him my help. That stopped right then. At 9:12 a.m., he got the call. Loan rejected. Co-signer removed. By 9:22, my phone lit up with a text, all caps. "What did you do?" Then another. "You ruined everything." Then nothing. By noon, I had 4 missed calls from my mom, 2 from my dad, and 1 from an unknown number, likely my brother borrowing a friend's phone. I ignored them all. Just kept refreshing the apartment listings tab I had open. When they returned that evening, they were fuming. I could hear their voices outside before they even entered. My dad stormed in first, pacing like he was gearing up for a brawl. My mom followed, demanding to know if I'd lost my senses. My brother slammed the door behind them. I was at the kitchen table eating cereal. My dad asked what I was thinking. My mom wanted to know why I'd embarrassed the family. My brother ranted about how I'd destroyed his credit. I just told them I was done covering their mistakes. My brother called me selfish. My mom said I'd never survive on my own. My dad just shook his head and said I owed them everything. That they raised me, that they gave me a home. I nearly laughed. I'd been paying the electric bill for a year and covering the internet since I was 19. But I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice, I just said, "I'm done with this." I left the table, went to my room, locked the door, and started browsing apartments. My grandfather had warned me for years. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, he'd pull me aside and say, "You need to leave that house. They're not your responsibility, they're your burden." I used to think he was being dramatic. Now I understood. I was 22. I had graduated, and I was done pretending this was a family that valued me beyond what I could provide. This was the last time I'd let them take from me. They didn't speak to me the next day. Not directly, anyway. But I could feel it in their actions around the house. My mom slamming cabinet doors. My dad sighing heavily every time he passed my room. My brother letting out exaggerated, scornful huffs in the hallway. It was meant to guilt me. It didn't work. That morning I called in sick to my part-time job and spent the day scouring apartment listings. I had some savings, just under $5,000, mostly from tutoring, freelance gigs, and pinching pennies while living with them. The plan had always been to move out eventually, just not so soon, but something shifted. The party, that toast, the loan, their reaction, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I wasn't family to them. I was a resource, a walking bank account. I ate dinner in my room, heard them eating downstairs without me, not even bothering to invite me. That hurt a little, but not enough to stop me. The next morning, my grandparents arrived. I heard their car before I saw it. My grandpa's old Dodge Charger roared like a thunderstorm. I peeked out the window and saw them stepping out. My grandpa in his denim jacket. My grandma holding a Tupperware of something she knew I'd love. They marched up the front steps like they owned the place. I stayed in my room at first, just listening. It didn't take long. I heard my grandpa's voice, deep and cutting. He was tearing into them, something about how they treated me. Something about the loan. Something about how they should be ashamed. Then my dad's voice, defensive. My mom's, sharp and shrill. My brother trying to butt into a conversation he didn't belong in. Then my grandfather again, louder. I stepped into the hallway just in time to hear him say, "You've turned this house into a parasite's den." My grandma looked up at me, gave a small nod, and said, "You ready?" I walked downstairs. My grandfather handed me an envelope. Didn't explain, just pressed it into my hands. My dad immediately demanded to know what it was. I opened it right there. $8,000 in cash. $8,000. The room fell silent. My dad stared at it like it was a betrayal. My mom stepped forward and asked, "Why are you giving that to him?" My grandpa didn't even glance at her, just turned to me and said, "Use this to get out. Sooner the better." My brother started shouting, something about how he'd asked for money to fix his car and my grandfather refused. My mom brought up the time they needed help with the mortgage and he wouldn't budge. My dad accused them of favoritism. My grandmother stepped in and said, "We didn't give you anything because you'd squander it. We gave it to Henry because he needs it." Then she turned to me and added, "And because he's the only one worth anything in this house." That was it. The room erupted, yelling, accusations, old grudges dragged up like skeletons. I went back upstairs with the envelope, closed my door, and sat on my bed. For the first time in years, I felt like I had choices. I spent the next 2 days apartment hunting like it was my job. I found a place in a nearby city 20 minutes away. Rent was $1,200 a month, which I could manage. The best part? No roommates. Just me, my space, my rules. I signed the lease that week. When I told my parents, they acted like I was declaring war. My dad called me reckless. My mom said I was abandoning my family. My brother said I wouldn't last 2 months. I didn't argue. I just started packing. Packing wasn't hard because I was sad. It was hard because this house had swallowed my belongings. My stuff had wandered into other rooms like stray cats. The mini fridge I bought for my room was in the garage, filled with my dad's beer. My chair. In my brother's room, because his broke last fall and he took mine without asking. My phone charger was always plugged into the outlet behind the living room couch, used by whoever got there first. Even my noise-canceling headphones were buried in my mom's laundry basket, under a pile of mismatched socks. No one apologized or offered to help me pack. They just acted like my leaving was a personal insult. I started slowly pulling boxes from the attic, folding clothes, wrapping up my laptop and gear. At first, no one said anything. But once the tape came out and the boxes started piling up by the door, they noticed. My dad came into my room one night and asked flatly, "What's all this?" I said I found an apartment. He stood there like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Then he said, "So you're just leaving like that?" I didn't say much. Just nodded. He looked around the room again, then muttered, "You're gonna leave us with everything." Everything. Meaning the internet bill I'd paid for 3 years, the utilities I contributed to every month, the groceries, the gas, the late-night pharmacy runs, the money I lent my brother that never came back. That was their version of everything. I just said, "Yeah, I am." He left without another word. The next morning, the power in my room mysteriously cut out. Just my room. I checked the fuse box. One switch was flipped. I flipped it back. It wasn't an accident. I didn't bother confronting them. It would have turned into another fight, with them claiming it was a coincidence and me being overdramatic. Then came the petty games. Trash appeared outside my door. Empty bottles, crumpled fast food wrappers. I'd clean it up and more would show up the next day. My mom started hogging the washer and dryer whenever I needed it, saying, "Oh, I didn't know you needed it now. You should have said something." My brother blasted his speakers during my work calls. He'd lock the bathroom door and take 40-minute showers as soon as I got home. Dinner became a show. They'd talk around me, about me. My brother making cracks about people who can't handle grown-up life. My mom tossing out lines like, "Let's see how long he lasts." My dad would just glance over and shake his head, like I was a letdown before I'd even left. But I kept going. Every night I added more to the boxes. Started labeling them with a thick marker: kitchen, desk, bathroom, clothes. Each one felt like a step toward freedom. I even found a small storage unit nearby for the stuff I couldn't take right away. The day before the move, I sat at the kitchen table for a moment just to see what would happen. Nothing. No one spoke. My mom got up and left the room. My dad stayed glued to his phone. My brother tossed his empty soda can near the trash but didn't bother to make sure it landed inside. So I went upstairs and finished the last box. That night my grandfather called. Said he and Grandma would be there at 8 a.m. sharp. They were bringing his truck and some rope for the furniture. Asked if I needed help with the heavier stuff. I told him I had most of it handled, but his help would mean the world. He paused and said, "You're doing the right thing, Henry. They'll be angry, but don't let that stop you." Then, after a moment, he added, "I'm proud of you." I sat there holding the phone, letting those words settle in. No one else had ever said that to me, not once. I was up before dawn, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling like it held answers. My alarm was set for 7, but I didn't need it. I hadn't slept much anyway. My bag was packed, my last box sealed and stacked by the door. This was it, the day I'd been counting down to in silence for weeks. The house was quiet, that eerie kind of quiet that only happens when everyone's gone or still asleep. I checked the clock, 6:11 a.m. I stood, walked to the window and looked at the driveway, empty. I had a couple of hours before the chaos arrived. I took my time carrying the boxes downstairs. No one to block the hallway, no one to question what I was carrying or where I was going. I made 3 trips, careful not to scuff the walls or make noise. The last thing I needed was one of them waking up and turning this into a spectacle. At 8:03 a.m., I heard the rumble of my grandfather's Charger outside. His car sounded like a tank rolling in. I opened the door and there they were. Grandpa in his work gloves, ready to go. Grandma with bagels and a box of gas station coffee from Maple Street. She handed me a cup and kissed my cheek like it was just another morning. We got to work. Grandpa had a system, and I followed it without question. He tied the boxes like they were cargo for a cross-country haul. Grandma wiped down the truck bed before we loaded anything. Their presence felt solid, like they weren't just helping, they were standing guard. Around 8:40, as we secured the last load, my parents' car pulled up. I froze for a second. They weren't supposed to be back until noon. My dad got out first, slamming the door like it had wronged him. My mom stepped out, ignoring my grandparents. My brother was in the back seat, shirtless and groggy, rubbing his eyes like we'd disturbed his nap. None of them said good morning. My dad walked up to the truck and stood in front of it like he owned the street. He didn't look at me. "So this is what you're doing now?" I didn't answer, just tightened the last strap and kept working. My grandma stepped in. "Sure is, he's doing what none of you ever had the courage to." My mom let out a sharp laugh and said, "Oh, so now he's a hero." My grandfather ignored her entirely. Then things escalated. My brother walked to the back of the truck, eyed the boxes, and yanked one halfway out. "This one's mine, you're not taking it." I recognized the box. It had my Xbox inside. My Xbox that I paid for that he'd been using daily for a year without permission. When I stopped letting him monopolize it, he started claiming it was his. Now he was trying to keep it. I told him, "That's mine, I paid for it. I have the receipt." He looked at me and said, "I don't care, you're not leaving with it." For a moment it felt like this might turn physical. He stepped closer. My mom started walking over with that look she always had when she thought I was being difficult. My dad stood there, arms crossed, like he was waiting to see how far I'd go. Then my grandpa stepped up beside me and said calmly, "Move." "Now." My brother didn't budge, smirked like he thought the old man was bluffing. So Grandpa stepped forward, slow and deliberate, and that smirk vanished. My brother backed off, muttering, "Whatever, weirdo," and walked away. My dad stayed silent. My mom followed, still shaking her head. No thank you, no apology. No offer to help. They disappeared into the house like roaches scattering when the lights turn on. We finished loading. I did a final walkthrough of my room, cleared the shelves, unplugged the outlets, shut the window one last time. I stood in the doorway, looking at the space that had been mine for 22 years but never truly felt like it. When I walked downstairs with my last bag, the front door was closed. No one came out. No goodbye. I got in my car, waited for my grandparents to pull out, and followed them down the street. Half a block from the house, my phone buzzed. A group text from my mom. "Don't expect to come back when this all falls apart." I stared at the message, then muted the chat. I looked up and saw my grandfather's truck turning toward the freeway. I didn't hesitate. I followed. We reached the apartment by mid-morning. The sky was clear, the street quiet, and the area felt different, peaceful. No yelling neighbors, no junk cars in the driveway, no one arguing on speakerphone in the yard. It wasn't a fancy building, just a modest 2-story brick place with uneven mailboxes and faded shutters. But I looked at it and thought, this is freedom. It was the first time I had a key that no one else in my family could claim. Just me. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and stood in the empty space, breathing in the scent of fresh paint and nothing else. No noise, no tension, no passive-aggressive comments drifting in from another room. I didn't have much yet. Just a rolled-up mattress by the window, a folding table from my grandpa's garage, and a second-hand office chair I got for free from a local Facebook group. But it felt like a castle. We started unloading the truck. My grandpa moved like he'd done this 1,000 times, no wasted effort. My grandma organized as we brought things in. Kitchen boxes to the left, bedroom stuff in the back, clothes in the closet. She even cleaned the fridge before I unpacked a single thing. Around noon, we took a break, sat on the floor eating bagels with coffee that had gone lukewarm. Grandpa opened a water bottle and said, "This place feels clean." He didn't mean the floors. I knew what he meant. I told them I wasn't inviting my parents or brother over, not ever. They nodded like they'd expected it. Grandma reached into her purse and pulled out a small envelope. "We've had this saved for a while." She glanced at Grandpa. He gave me that look, "Don't argue, just take it." I opened it. Another $500 in cash. "Just something for groceries or whatever," Grandma said. "Maybe get a microwave or a decent table." I didn't know what to say. I just nodded and thanked them. They stayed another hour, helped set up the router, checked the outlets, and tested the smoke detector. Then Grandpa said they should head back before traffic got bad. As they left, he said, "You won't miss them as much as you think." I said, "I already don't." After they left, I didn't rush to unpack. I just lay on the mattress for a while, staring at the ceiling. The quiet felt odd at first, like I'd muted the world by accident. But soon, it felt right. I hadn't realized how much noise that house carried until it was gone. The slamming doors, the late-night arguments, the footsteps that always meant someone needed something from me. Here, the only sound was my neighbor's dog barking once, then silence again. That night, I ordered pizza, set my laptop on a box, and ate on the floor. No table, no silverware, just paper towels and the glow of a screen. And it felt better than any meal I'd had in that house. I didn't hear from my parents that weekend. No text, no call, not even a "hope you're settling in." I figured they were either pretending I didn't exist or waiting for me to fail and beg for help. But I didn't. On Monday, I went back one last time with Grandpa to grab some tools and boxes I'd left in the garage. We didn't go inside. I texted my brother to leave the stuff by the side door. It was there, barely packed, stuffed into a trash bag like they were throwing me out with the garbage. We loaded it without a word. My mom's car was in the driveway, my dad's too. No one came out, not even a glance from the window. As we drove away, Grandpa said, "Figures. They probably think you'll be back in a month." I told him, "Let them wait." I went home, to my home, unpacked the rest, and took a hot shower without someone pounding on the door or asking if I'd paid the water bill. I slept deeply that night. No yelling, no footsteps, no guilt, just silence. And for the first time, I didn't dream about escaping. I dreamed about what was next. I never got a goodbye. Not that I expected one, but part of me thought maybe at the last moment someone would at least pretend. Maybe a quick text. Maybe a final attempt to act like I mattered. But nothing. Not when I moved out. Not when I went back for the last of my things. Not in the days after. And that said more than words ever could. 2 weeks later, I had a housewarming. Nothing big, just a few work friends, a guy from a coding boot camp, and my grandparents. Grandma brought too much food. Grandpa brought folding chairs and a toolbox, just in case something needs fixing. They were the only ones who seemed truly happy for me. My friends asked where the rest of my family was. I shrugged and said, "They weren't invited." We laughed, we ate, we drank a bit. I gave a tour of the place even though it took 30 seconds. Still, it felt good, like I was showing off a new life, like I was finally in control. That night after everyone left, I cleaned up alone, turned off the lights, and stood in the kitchen with the last slice of cake in my hand. I looked around at my space, still half furnished, still coming together, but it felt real. Mine. And just like that, I realized something. That house had no hold over me anymore. My parents still hadn't reached out. My brother sent one text. A single word, "Cool." No context, no follow-up. I didn't respond. They weren't blocked. I didn't feel the need. They could text, they could call, they could knock on my door, but they wouldn't get an answer. I wasn't after revenge. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I just wanted peace, and I finally had it. Some days I walk to the coffee shop near my building and see parents with their kids, talking and laughing. Sometimes that stings, knowing I'll never have that with mine. But then I remember I do have family. 2 people who showed up when no one else did, who stood between me and a house full of leeches and gave me the courage to walk away. They were enough. Every month when I pay my rent, I smile. I'm broke sometimes. It's not easy. But it's honest. And no one's yelling at me from across the house while I do it. No one's expecting me to split my paycheck 3 ways. No one's flipping breakers out of spite or stealing my headphones or mocking me. I eat dinner in silence now. I sleep through the night. I live alone, and I've never been freer.